In some breaking news, French far-right former leader Jean-Marie Le Pen has passed away at the age of 96. The father of the National Rally's Marine Le Pen is the historical figurehead of the far-right movement in this country. The pair had a public falling out, but Le Pen shook the French political establishment when he unexpectedly reached the presidential election runoff vote against Jacques Chirac back in the year 2000. His daughter, Marine Le Pen, has turned his party into a formidable and mainstream force here in France. To talk more about this, we can bring in France 24's French politics editor, Marc Perelman. Marc, Jean-Marie Le Pen he's not been in the public eye for a while now, yet he reigns over far-right politics here in France.
Yes, for over 6 decades. Clearly, he was the towering figure of the far right until he was pushed aside by his daughter because he was seen as detrimental to the rise of the far right. And Marine Le Pen really had some fights. People thought it was manufactured, but she really had some disagreements and some personal fights with her father, who kept on criticizing her, saying she was going towards the center. She was really changing too much the politics that he had supported, advocated for years, because for years Jean-Marie Le Pen was the devil in French politics. Let's call it this way. He was, for years, never invited on television because he was seen as radioactive because of his xenophobia, anti-Semitism. He's also gone to a war in Algeria where he was accused of using torture, which he assumed for some time, and then towards the end of his life said, no, I didn't do it. But if it was needed, we did what was needed to be done. And obviously, he was condemned several times for anti-Semitic rants. So he was clearly someone who was very important because he brought the far right after World War II. The far right was clearly...
Because no one wanted anything to do with the far right.
No one wanted to, and he was very, very lonely. The first time he ran for president was in 1974, and he garnered less than 1%. The ensuing presidential election, 1981, he couldn't even run because he didn't get the 500 signatures of local officials. And then the breakthrough came in the mid-80s. He was leader of the National Front at the time, as it was called. And they started getting results at the municipal election in the western town of Dreux, 1983. Then there were European elections where, for the first time, the National Front, garnered 11%. Then the legislative election, 1986. He became a player. He ran in 1988. And obviously, as you mentioned, the big breakthrough was in 2002, when this was really the mother of all surprises. He reached the second round of the presidential round. He was trounced by Jacques Chirac. But obviously, this was really a key moment in French politics.
Because of that Republican front that everyone voted for Jacques Chirac. But Marine Le Pen's risky bet of separating herself from her father has paid off, hasn't it? Considering the National Rally, the National Front, which has become the National Rally, has become a power player in French politics. They may not be in government or have the presidency, but they're calling a lot of the shots.
They're the number one party in terms of votes at the last legislative elections, and they've kept on rising. Jean-Marie Le Pen reached the second round of the presidential election. It was a major upset in 2002. Marine Le Pen was not an upset anymore. Clearly, she changed things. She pushed her father aside, but she also pushed some of his policies aside, especially all his anti-Semitic rants that have punctured his career. And she said, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't want this to be an issue anymore. We're not that kind of party. And clearly, she also took advantage of the climate that has changed. And obviously, the 10 years of Charlie Hebdo emphasized this, that there was much more ill feelings towards the Muslim here in France, and obviously the fact that she was very tough on immigration, on fighting radical Islam, and even Islam itself was much more fruitful in terms of votes, much more in tone what we're seeing in other Western countries, and this probably helps her help explain why she's now on the cusp of winning a presidential election. This seemed a pie in the sky for her father, but it's a now realistic prospect for her.
Stay with us, Marc, because Angela, of course, the news of Marine Le Pen's death comes as Jean-Marie Le Pen, sorry, death comes, of course, as France is marking 10 years since the Charlie Hebdo attacks and, of course, the hostage-taking at a kosher supermarket. This, of course, in the context that a lot of French Jews continue to live in fear in this country.
Yeah, Marc alluded there to, of course, Jean-Marie Le Pen famously was an anti-Semitic politician. He famously said that the Holocaust was a detail of history. And he embodied a more pre-war anti-Semitism, an old Catholic right-wing anti-Semitism. The Catholic Church did not come out of the Second World War very gloriously in terms of its attitude towards the Jews. And he embodied that sort of old traditional right-wing anti-Semitism. If you talk to many French Jews today, I think that many of them say now that they feel much more threatened by a second type of anti-Semitism, which is evident here in the commemoration of the attack on the kosher supermarket, this Islamist anti-Semitism and its physical deaths as a result. And these two anti-Semitisms are something that Jews have to deal with on a daily basis. But Marine Le Pen has, as Marc said, tried to put a clear line between her father's anti-Semitism. She has spoken out on numerous occasions for the Jewish population in recent years, the French Jewish population. Many French Jews remain very wary of her far-right national rally, but many more feel that she is not anti-Semitic and that she has a useful awareness of a real Islamist threat that they feel.